I'm Mathew Kerbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to this joint series on how to run a law firm in 2025. We are going to dive into the first of probably many parts about technology, which is everyone's favorite topic. I get the most questions about. I'm not sure how you feel, Matthew, but everybody wants to know, what tech do you use? How do you find out about it? So, we're going to start this episode with some context and some foundation about how do we decide when to bring on new tech? How do we decide to get rid of tech? Where do we find the information about what's out there? And how do we evaluate everything for our businesses on a routine basis? And then we will get into what we're actually using. But first, we're going to talk about evaluating our tech tools. So for me, I love staying in the know. I kind of keep my ear out for the latest and greatest that's out there. And I find this from all over the place. I don't necessarily subscribe to any one thing in particular, but really just kind of keeping my ear out to what somebody else is talking about. If I hear about something on a podcast or just an ad that comes my way that's talking about something. So I'm always on the lookout for new tech tools. Matthew, how do you find the latest and greatest and maybe something that you might want to upgrade your tech stack with?
Yeah, absolutely very similar for me, right? Like I'm not necessarily specifically out there looking for some new piece of technology unless like I hear Apple's going to drop like some new tech that's actually going to change something. Like, I'm sorry, a camera button on the iPhone 16 like does not interest me at all. New powerful chip and configuration for the new M4 and M4 Pro Mac Mini, like, absolutely not. I'm watching all these YouTube videos and benchmarking against, like, do I really need the M4 Pro, or can I just get away with the M4? Because, like, even if I were to just, for Black Friday deals, pick up a new M4 Mac Mini for, like, $500, which is $100 off if you get it on Amazon, like, even for just 500 more dollars, and I think I could trade in my M1 Mac Mini for its configuration for, like, 400. So for $100, I could seriously improve my hardware. And I'm going even further than that because 'cause I'm trying to future proof a little bit, and I do so much with the content creation and stuff that, like, I kind of need a more powerful computer now. I'm not just using it for Chrome. It's not a Chrome machine anymore. Like, I'm doing tons of stuff. And like the AI stuff and like everything. So like I need more powerful processor. So I am doing a little bit more focused research into like, okay, I'm trying to improve my like main hardware, which is the Mac Mini that I leverage. And for other things, like I had a Surface for a really long time, and I almost got my Surface. I got the Surface Pro X just because of the form factor. It was new at the time, so I figured, hey, the tech is like I'm not like super into the specifics of like the tech and the processors of this and that usually, but like okay, it's the newest Surface. This was in like 2019, so it's going to be better. I understood there was some weird things with like the architecture was a little different, but like the bezel was so thin. The device was so thin, the keyboard was so thin. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like way better than a laptop experience," but it's kind of like a mini laptop experience. And then, that got real old, like literally, like it got old and you gotta upgrade that on the go setup. It was going super slow, and I started my own practice and I still had it for like 2.5 years into my new practice. And so when the Mac or when the iPad, the M4 chip iPads came out, there have been a lot more features like stage manager mode for iPads, and they even have it on Mac OS too. You could do that if you like that setting. It became closer to a laptop. So with the M4 iPad and the Magic Keyboard, I was able to say, okay, finally I could have like the touchscreen thin travel experience that I can't get from a laptop, but I was getting from my Surface. So like that's like the most nuanced I really get when it comes to like the what's inside the guts of the hardware tech. And for software stuff, like I subscribe to Bob Ambrosie's Law Next. I follow Nikki Black on LinkedIn. I am also subscribed to Artificial Lawyer. So like I try to stay with like cutting edge when it comes to legal tech. But look, at the end of the day, legal tech does so little for me. I only use a few legal tech tools. They may be sponsors of this podcast and a couple more, but that's it. Like it's not super crazy.
Yeah, I find the same experience. I don't get a lot of benefit from tech developed specifically in the legal industry, I often find it's a little behind, like, what they are launching as the latest and greatest. I'm like, "I've had that for 3 years with something else." But I think outside of the legal industry in particular, there's a ton of cutting edge stuff, and it can be really easy to get overwhelmed and do the shiny object syndrome and go to the, "Oh, now so and so launched this, so now I gotta go over here." And so for me, I really try and identify those tension points like you were talking about, where I'm thinking, the surface is okay, but I really wish it did X, Y, and Z. And then keeping my ear out for something that may fill those gaps, and does it make sense cost wise? So that's
Mhm.
always the trade off is, what am I going to get for this for the cost of it? And if it's going to save me an hour a week, 10 hours a month, whatever it is, I have to do that math to be able to say, yeah, this is going to make a lot of sense for me. That's how the I make the decision on the front end, but then I also try and do that every 6 months to at least every year on the back end once I do put something into my tech stack. Sometimes I'll use it for, like, the first 2 weeks, and I'm super jazzed about it, and then I really don't have a need for it, and so I want to make sure I'm not paying for something I'm not needing, or that I didn't find, Lawmatics, for example, can do scheduling now, so do I really need Acuity anymore? Like, is the user interface as great? No, but could I save the cost and not have double and make my life kind of a lot worse because it's not all integrated? Those are kind of the questions that I look at least once a year to say, can I consolidate? What am I paying? And is it actually making sense for the business? And then just trying to keep my ear out for those gaps that I may have felt but haven't found a solution for yet.
Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely rare for me, but you mentioned ads too. Like I do hear like I listen to a lot of tech and entrepreneurship podcasts. I think we talked about that in an earlier episode. And sometimes the ads on those are actually relevant for me as a small business owner. And I can't think of necessarily any that I'm like currently using, but I've definitely gone and demoed some tech that I heard advertised on a podcast. So I think, and I know for a fact that people have signed up for my sponsors because they heard it on my podcast, right? So I think that podcasts in general or ads can be a way to learn about these things. But then you go and get your hands dirty and you actually demo the tools, right? Like very rarely are you just signing up and using it. Like with Lawmatics and legal tech in particular, like kind of that's sometimes, and I think this is not a great thing. I mean, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, is they make you demo it first or they make you get on a call because they think that helps with the sales cycle. And sometimes just give me a demo, like give me the keys, like a temporary key that expires and let me play around with the tool. For most lawyers, probably maybe that's not a good idea if they're lawyers over a certain age or they're not particularly tech savvy. But like with Automatics, I remember like they even have like some light client portal features. And I was like, whoa, you make some of these more robust. And I might not just use you for, the reason that for drip campaigns and like CRM and other things, like the main reason you design, like I'd use you as a light client portal solution. And so so while that was a no for me at the time, I have a calendar reminder to check in. And I said, hey, if you launch these features, whenever it is in your product roadmap, reach out to me, like, cause that's something that I'm interested in. So even if it's a no from a user standpoint for particular tech, like, yes, you want to put in a reminder, review this in 6 months. But also, hey, this wasn't a good fit at this time. Maybe it's a good fit now in the future because there were some things that I liked about this technology. Like, do you prefer to get your hands on something and play around with it before you become a customer? Like, what's been your demo, whether it's hands on demo or not hands on demo type experience?
Yes, I have to get in and be able to play with it. I get really frustrated at software technologies when I hear about them and then I go to their site and I cannot figure out what they do. Like, it's all this like marketing language. And I'm like, okay, but what does it actually do? Like, how does it work? I want to see screenshots. And ideally, I would like to have a demo so that I can actually get in there and play with it and see, what does clicking on this do? And what if I add this here? And is this going to work for me? Well, my flow is to do it this way. Can I use that, or am I gonna have to change up my flow? Like, yeah, I wanna be able to apply it to my own business, and so ones that don't have any sort of demo or any, like, real information about features, I tend to say, "That might have sounded really cool, and your ad might have been awesome on that podcast, but I can't commit because I don't know what it's going to do," and I really hate getting into something, putting in my own data, and then realizing it's not gonna work. Like, that it feels like a waste of time to me. And I think that's why it took me so long to change case management systems because I used Clio for 9 years and like it was all right. There was a lot of stuff it didn't do. As a solo, I really wanted more automations where I could have the system just run on its own and I could put in triggers. Clio doesn't do that, which is why I was attracted to Lawmatics. But it took me a long time because I was really afraid transferring over all of that data and like, well, what if it doesn't work? I don't want to go back. Like, what a nightmare that is. So, yeah, I have to get in and really get my hands dirty before I will commit. Are you the same way?
Yeah, and you just made me think of some jargon that I'm gonna throw out there for folks who are, like, in this. So what you just described, Lauren, is called switching costs. Like, what are your switching costs? Yes, certainly there's the cost of what it costs to use the software, but what are will you have in my instance, if they're subscribed, will there be inadvertent churn where somebody becomes unsubscribed because I'm switching from one platform to another, right? And I even recently discovered how since I integrate with Stripe and SweetDash, I can, if I just wanted to, like, take them totally just right into Stripe because all their payment information is saved in there. So actually, my switching costs are just the time it takes for me to do that, not necessarily that I will lose them, but there are always switching costs whenever you're switching from one piece of software to another. And and you might think, well, conversion software, like I have to convert the files from one file format to another file format. There's some software that does this for you now. It's very, very expensive. So there's that like literal switching costs. Like it costs money to pay to have things switched. But even just more broadly as a concept for you to understand is if you're switching from one software piece to another, that there might be other sorts of immaterial switching costs that are part of that. Another concept is the all-in-one solutions, which are uh, very common in law. Like I know, I did demo and really liked FileVine. I mean, they're not built for subscription law practices, so like it wasn't ultimately a good fit. And their adaptation to that was like a payment plan, but then it shows like the total amount they're going to pay over the next 1,000 years, and like I didn't want that, right? So like, and they made a fix that since then, but they're trying to be this all-in-one solution, and I get that a lot of lawyers want that, but I've decided I don't like it. I prefer, and I've heard this said in different ways, best of breed or best in breed. Don't know which one is correct. Maybe I edit this part out of the podcast after I do research about it. But you're looking at like I want best of breed. So you did mention Acuity versus like a Lawmatics. So Lawmatics has scheduling built in, and I could tell you this was like over a year ago. So not trying to throw any shade at Lawmatics. I really did like Lawmatics. But as a user, like trying to sign in and schedule something through Lawmatics for somebody else once, it was not a positive experience. And so I'm sure they fixed it because it was over a year ago. But when your only like solution, like and Acuity's been acquired, so it doesn't even necessarily do this anymore. Like this is why I love Calendly. I love Calendly because it's literally all they do. They just do scheduling. They do scheduling better than anybody. And for a solopreneur at the entry level plan for that, it's $120 a year. That's $10 a month and it integrates with almost everything. If you can't afford $10 a month for some of the best software you'll ever use as a firm owner, like maybe you should just not be a firm owner. And then like I hate to say that, but like realistically, like it's $10 a month. Um, it is. I leverage it before AI and before Descript, which is a largely AI powered tool. That was my most used software, so it's still way up there in terms. It's still top three for software that I use the most, and it's $10 a month. Now, if you have a bigger team, it gets more expensive because everybody needs an account, and there's some additional features that come with that, though. That they used to be bundled, used to be 150 a year, but Calendly stripped out those features that the solos like me weren't using, and so they were more cost effectively able to deliver it, probably even more cost effectively. Like they passed on a little bit of the savings, but certainly not all the savings to the just independent users, paid users of Calendly. So I prefer best of a breed. And like Calendly, one more thing, and then I'll kick it back to you, Lauren. Sorry, I love this topic. Is how I discovered Calendly. I discovered Calendly because and there's a great How I Built This interview with the founder of Calendly. And so check it out. And they didn't do this like they didn't strategically do this. It sort of was the only way for them to spread. But they did something called product-led growth, where they let people use Calendly for free with very limited usage. And it put at the bottom of every email and on the branding of every scheduling page, Calendly, 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 Calendly. And so somebody sent me their Calendly link. And I thought, this is amazing. And I immediately signed up to be a free user. And once I started my own business, that was one of the first subscriptions that I signed up for as a paid user. So like that could be a way is like other people and even customers. I've had clients introduce me to tech, like a client introduced me to Stripe. And that's like what powers the way my firm generates revenue. And I learned about that from a client, like amazing. So from clients, from just other people using the tech that it gets you exposed to it. So those are some other ways that I discovered tech.
Yeah, it can be really wonderful, but also a bombardment of information because there is so much out there and there are so many different permutations of very like minded software. So, one of the things that I find really helpful is before I look at any one piece of software in particular, is to put down what do I need the thing to do? Like, I don't have anything in mind. Let's take scheduling client meetings as an example. Like, what do I need it to do? Okay, I need to be able to send a link that somebody can see my calendar, which means I have to have this online calendar sync with my actual calendar so I don't get double booked. That's a big deal, right? I want to make it super easy for the user so it's not clunky. They can easily pick some dates, maybe put in their contact information, and then you can even do things like it would be nice if it would send a reminder. But maybe that's not like must have, but it's like that would be nice if it did that, but I'm not going to not choose something that checks all the other boxes. So I always find that super helpful because I can get into these shiny object syndrome very fast when you open up these marketing sites for all these softwares and they're like, look at all this cool stuff we do. And you can have AI in your calendar. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe that'd be really cool. And I'm like, do I really? I mean, let's take a step back. Do I really need that? So I always go back to my list of like, does it do these 6 things that I need it to do? Oh, it only does 2 of them. Well, it looks real cool, and I'm sure, I would be the talk of the town, but it's gonna cost me more work because I still need those other 4 things to do, and now I've gotta do something else. So, definitely looking for the best of the breed. Like, who's really killing it in this space? Obviously, they're killing it for a reason, but then also looking at, like, what do you need for your firm? And that might not be Calendly. There may be another solution that actually works better for you, and that's okay, but you've gotta know what you need first before you dive in. Otherwise, it's like a fire hose. And I don't know if you've ever had that where something sounded real good and then you got in there and you're like, didn't quite do what I thought it would do.
Almost always legal tech.
We're really giving the good advertising for legal tech here.
And you reminded me, Lauren, that, there are sometimes you have to ask the question, and I listen to a lot of legal tech podcasts, and they're not always like legal tech focused, but they're technology for legal focused podcasts. And something they say all the time, and I think this is totally true, but this is not necessarily the message of our podcast, but I want to put it out there, is you have to ask the question, does my current tech stack already do the thing or things? Because probably with like Power Automate, if you're a Microsoft user, might actually do a lot of automation things that you might be paying Zapier to do or Make.com to do, or if this, then that, right? And so, like, maybe your existing tech stack just does it. Microsoft has a Calendly like solution called Microsoft Bookings. I also think it's garbage from a user standpoint of like having to sign up for times on it. Google Appointments is okay. It just lacks so much of the rich feature set of Calendly. But like if you're already a Google Workspace at a certain level subscriber, I think maybe it's $12 a month. If you're at that level, I think you get all these, you get Google Appointments and some other features in there for like some newsletter stuff. So like you don't need a third party newsletter thing. Because if you're at $12 a month or up in Google Workspace, there's some rich feature sets for newsletter style emails built right into when you open up a new email. So like you could ask, the question, does my tech already do this thing? And to another point that you said, Lauren, is okay, like, does it send a reminder or does it connect to my calendar? And like, does it do these things? You got to think of non-tech standard operating procedures, right? So like my life goes into my calendar. My wife puts things into my calendar to make sure like I don't get booked during something, right? So like that is really important to not just adopt the tech, but adopt the standard operating procedures in your business and in your life that help comport with the usage of the tech the way that you intend to use it when you did what Lauren said and you figure out what do I need to do this tech to do for me and for my firm before I just sign up and subscribe.
Yeah. I'm curious because neither of us bill by the hour. So it can be a very easy equation if you can estimate, oh, this is going to save me right an hour a week. And if I bill $200 an hour and this thing is 50 bucks, then right, that math is super easy and it makes sense. But for me, I'm like, well, I don't bill by the hour and I couldn't tell you what my hourly rate is. So do you have a system or equation in terms of like if you are going to add something in it like the cost versus the time savings, or maybe it's not the time savings but it's like a increase in client experience, like this is, oh my god, my clients are going to love this is going to make working with me so much better. How do you sort of do that equation in a more analytical way, or is it just sometimes, I'll be honest, it's just gut for me, but I'd like to be a little bit more specific about it.
Well, like, the gut things, it's a really great question, and the gut things are like, okay, like, I remember when I first signed up for Adobe because I needed e-signature software, I did not do any calculus for that, right? I knew I didn't want DocuSign because, at least as far as I knew at the time, and I've signed a million things with DocuSign, and there's some other ones like Dotloop and some other things, right? And I needed a PDF editor too, though. I needed a robust PDF editor in addition to e-signature software. And look, Adobe, it was 20 bucks a month. I'm like, sort of with the Calendly thing. If I can't afford $20 a month for mission critical software, that's more gut. Is it mission critical? You kind of need to do it. Another thing that I did a little bit of both with is Formula, which is through the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education. And what they do is they've using like hot docs or like some it's slightly older automation software. They have automated all the forms in this CL for the CLE program for general practice, solo practice lawyers. And when I got started, it was like $26 a month. I think it might be 30 now, but like 3 years later, like it's still not bad. I'm still in month to month instead of annually because I'm thinking I have a savings to do it annually, but I'm like, am I really gonna like use it? And so I kind of want to be able to get out to pay a slight premium on that to get out whenever I want. But realistically, like if I sell like one prenup through that automation, that's paid for it for a couple of years, you know? Like, so like I've for the value that I've gotten, in particular, like it's actually easier on a flat fee than hourly, right? Because like, first of all, I make all my clients subscribe. So like I'm getting 20 bucks a month. Like it's not gonna be life changing or firm changing money. It's when they do the flat fees for those entry level clients. And like, like I'll also help people start a business. And there's a great single member and multi-member LLC operating agreement automations in there. Like I could build a new one in Gavel, and I've thought about that. But like the automation is there. It's 30 bucks a month. If I sell one of those things, just that pays for it for 2 or 3 years, right? So like the cost benefit analysis is a no freaking brainer for like tools like that, right? And holistically, so to answer your question from like a holistic standpoint, I have a spreadsheet and I have all of my software. And on top of that, I don't just have the software, I have any monthly subscription or annual subscription because I only have the 2. I know there are some subscriptions out there that are quarterly and some other things, and I have it all baked in so I could estimate because some are paid annually, some are paid monthly. What's my monthly annual spend on software and other subscriptions? And what's my annual spend? And I include things in here like the cost of my mailbox, which is $45 a month to have like a virtual office space at a local shared workspace here in Illinois. I have things on there like subscriptions, although I'm actually glad I'm looking at this. I could take this off meetup.com because I used to run a group in Meetup. And that was twice a year. It was a 6 month subscription. So that was the unique 6 month subscription that I had. Things like my annual chamber membership, my LLC annual filing fee, registering, paying for ours is the state Supreme Court to re-register my law firm for another year, my ARDC, my attorney registration, for another year. So like all my annual things also broken down. So I could see that right now, although this is going to be lower now when I take out Meetup, let me just take out Meetup and let's do this. Let's see this live. My annual expenses for 2024 for operating expenses only is $7,115.84. I know my firm's bringing in a lot more than that. Like the only other expense, and that includes insurance and malpractice insurance premiums and includes all of my expenses, right? I know I could afford that. And when I add a new tech, when I'm evaluating new technology, I just plug it into the equation in the Google Sheet and I see what is this going to cost me versus, what's it going to take out? Because really it's just literally coming out of my pocket because I just pay myself and then I put money away into the firm war chest. So like for me, it's a no brainer. Like if it's $100 a month or less, I could probably rationalize it because like for Paxton, I would have to pay somebody tens of thousands a year to do what Paxton does for me. So that's a super no-brainer. But also, if Paxton increases prices or if software is more than 100 a month for a small firm owner, solo firm owner, I have to really start questioning, okay, like, is there going to be ROI? Can I leverage this? Like with the formula, super leverage because like one client pays for it for a year or more. So the same thing, you got to just think about it that way. Long-winded answer. Sorry, Lauren. I'll just let you come in with any criticisms or feedback or your own take on all that stuff.
No, I think that's all super helpful. And I know we'll get to sort of the law firm finances and accounting later on, but this speaks directly to that is you have to know everything that you're paying for. And if you take the approach of you're going to have a certain percentage of your revenue that can't exceed, then you're going to have to make decisions. Maybe that's how you make those decisions is you've got some number there. Or if you can say, wow, this new software is $100 a month, but if I sell one client on this, which I sell for $3,000, then I've at least covered this for a year and a half, right? 2 years, whatever the math is, like you said. So it's really I don't think that there is one way to evaluate technology. I think it depends on the type of tech and how you're going to use it and what your firm's numbers are, what that operating expense is. I do use some of those higher level, like I have the higher level of Gavel, but we don't have that really awesome thing that the state of Illinois offers you here in Colorado, right? So I'm limited in terms of what I can do, and for me, Gavel makes the most sense, and I did that same evaluation. I said, "Okay, if I sell one estate planning client, right, this is going to get me at least 6 months of this, and I know I can do that twice a year at the minimum, right? I'm selling way more than that, but that's a way to see if it makes sense, and then going through, like you said, pretty regularly, when you have that list and what it costs, it's very easy to go, "Wow, this is, $100 a month. When's the last time I used that? Like, do I really need that?" Or, "You know what? I just saw that Google added that to its workspace, so maybe I could just get rid of that." Like, that constant review and having those metrics makes it, I think, the easiest to identify what tech do you need, what can you maybe add on, and what's going to make your practice just that much more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know though, like you and I both use Canva. Do you remember how you learned about Canva?
No, I know I've been paying for it even and it's like, isn't it like $120 a year? It's like so cheap. Like it's a
Something
no-brainer for
like
me.
that. Yeah, it's
Um,
less than 200 a year for sure. Hold on, actually, I could tell you because 'cause I'm in here. I pay for it annually in advance,
yeah,
$119.99.
$120. I was right. Yeah, I do not remember. I want to say I have been using it probably the entire time I've had my firm. They have certainly upgraded. So, like, 9 years ago, it was not what it is now, but I feel like I have used it forever, and I honestly I wanna say it was like a web article of, like, "Check out this new, kinda DIY design," right? That's how it was pitched of, like, you don't need to be a designer to know what to do, and coming into the law practice, I was like, "That sounds great." But yeah, that's one I've had forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually remember where I found out about Canva, and it's also where I found out about Descript. And this is another really interesting way to also maybe hack, trying out these tools for free, because we know what it's like when you're starting, in particular, if you're, like, just started this year, your law firm, uh, and you could take advantage of these. So I joined, like a membership-based group, like networking group online, and there is like an annual fee to join, but I did a 30-day free trial for this group, and one of the member benefits for this online networking group were like 30 to 60-day trials of all these tech tools, and some of them were totally not relevant to me, like they were relevant to other startups or high growth tech startups, but some of them were super relevant, like paid subscriptions to like Monday.com or Asana, and Descript and Canva were on there too, and they just had little blurbs under all these tech tools that come for like, and it was like an added benefit because certainly there's like freemium versions of some of these tools. Like there's a freemium Canva, there's a freemium Descript, but like this gave me access to pro features for 60 days. It might have been 45 days, but something like that. It was like more than a month. And now I got to really get my hands dirty for an extended period of time. Like there are some free trials that are like 7 days. So it's like I might sign up and like a big client thing happens or a big personal thing happens. I just never used it. Now I'm out. But like when I had that long to use it, like I was really leveraging the tools, and so I immediately converted to a paid subscriber when they were available because I got that much value from those tools. So like look for those types of groups where like Generalist World is one that comes to mind, though it wasn't that one. And that one's got way more expensive too. But like one of the member benefits for joining that type of online networking group is here's 100 tech tools that we've negotiated these long free trials with. So definitely for folks, if you're interested in some tech out there, check that out. Entra, I think it's maybe joinentra.com is where I like, was exposed to all that stuff. And Entra, like entrepreneur, it's kind of become the like LinkedIn for folks in Web3, so that's not really my space anymore. But I did get one client just through like networking and stuff on there. But like that was where I was exposed to these tech tools for the free trials. And I also don't know if they're offering like a free premium membership to their platform anymore. I even think LinkedIn does something like this too. So like check it out, look into those types of things, and that could be another place you could find stuff. Anywhere else, any other tidbits on like evaluating and discovering tech for your firm, Lauren?
I would listen to podcasts. I get a lot of ideas from folks. I think I learned about Descript from you, Matthew, so you passed it forward. And then what I really find is if you can connect with that person and then ask them exactly how they use it, especially if the software itself doesn't have like a free trial demo version, is to go in and say, okay, Matthew, you're using Descript. How exactly are you using that? And have the person explain it. And then you may say, oh, yeah, I see how that works for your practice, but not quite what I'm looking for. That can be another great way to kind of get some intel into something from somebody who's actually using it, and you can ask them, like, really specific questions, which sometimes you can't always get from a demo, or it's gonna take a long time to put all your data in there to only find out that it doesn't work. So, yeah, just keep your ear out, but don't jump in the pool too quickly. I think doing that sort of analysis first is always gonna be really critical.
Yeah, and if you decide on a tool as far as hardware is concerned, I mean, I would just watch some YouTube videos of people actually getting their hands dirty with it and sometimes comparing it to other things. That's what I did with microphones. That's what I did with some other hardware. That's what I did with this wallet that is a MagSafe wallet for my phone. That's also a
Nice.
has a Find My feature, right? So it acts as a stand. It acts as a thing you can put your finger in, and it's a really strong magnet on your phone. And the reason I don't have my phone on it because I use my phone for continuity camera. So, so, like, I watched a YouTuber that, like, he literally attached 20 of these to his phone and, like, shook them. And I was like, "That's the thing I want." And that has nothing to do with law firm stuff, but, like, you could do equivalent for that for, like, software or hardware. I found it more useful for hardware, but there's definitely software comparisons and stuff on YouTube, and Descript has thousands of videos on, like, how to use their stuff. So I would definitely if you see that level of support from a software company, then you know, "Oh, yes, this, like, I will get the support I need too." Well, with all that, we could probably I am amazed, Lauren, that we talked this much about evaluating tech before we got into tech. Are you?
Yes, we're trying so hard, but there is a lot to it. Running a law firm is really freaking hard, and there's a lot to it. But hopefully, hearing our thought processes and how we evaluate tech is has been helpful. And I know everybody is just anticipating to find out. We've given a little snippets during this episode of certain technology that we use, but we will get into it next time in terms of both our hardware, so the actual like computers and equipment that we use, and then the software and kind of going through in different categories the software that we use, what we like about it, what you might want to consider, so that this could be your place to find out about all that new tech and actually hear from folks who are using it every day.
So if any of these episodes have been helpful for you, please share it with other law firm owners who you know. Share it in groups that you're with for other lawyers where there's some firm owners or even some attorneys who are thinking about starting their own practice. We named this How to Run a Law Firm in 2025, but a lot of these things are super relevant if you've been on the fence or you know someone who's been on the fence that is thinking about starting a law firm. So please, please share this. That's going to help folks out.
All right, until next time, we will see y'all later.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kerbis with Law Subscribed.